10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 410. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. Excited to be coming back at you in this first week of June. Hope everybody's early summer is going well. And yes, you did read that title correctly. This month we are going to be dealing with giant steps. And if that tune name strikes fear into your heart, fear not, because in true 10-minute jazz lesson podcast style, we're going to be stripping this thing down and giving you a much, much easier approach to this, and then sort of going from simple back to adding some more things. But if this is a tune that you have tried to do before and failed miserably, like me when I first attempted to do this tune, then this is gonna, I think, finally give you an approach that is approachable. It's a weird way of putting it, but yeah, that's what I meant to say. It is going to be approachable. Now, if you're a person that has like stumbled upon this tune in the real book or listened to it and yeah, haven't even given it a second thought, that you are able to do this. I think you're going to find that you will be able to do this after we go through some episodes here and break this down. So, in part one, what we're going to do is we're going to strip this down to its bare essentials. We're going to do our key center approach, and we're going to slow the tempo way down. In fact, even put a completely different feel behind it. And this is going to be a way that you can actually start working on this harmony and playing kind of right away on it. So that's the goal today. All right. So if you are a Patreon member, pull up that PDF and you're going to see that I have removed all of those scary changes. Now, there still is quite a bit of information on this sheet because no matter how much we want to simplify giant steps, there's still kind of a lot going on in terms of like when the key changes and all that kind of stuff. But I think if you're looking at the PDF, what you will notice is that it's a lot easier to look at than if you open the real book and saw all of those insane changes staring at you in the face. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you know, oh, I got to be able to play this at like a really, really fast tempo. Let's just get rid of all that baggage. And let's understand that, yes, even though this tune is difficult, it's just another tune that we have to get used to. And most of the time, the big difficulties that people have with this is honestly, they're just unfamiliar with it and they haven't kind of decoded it before they can jump in and start playing it. But do you notice that they're just all major keys? So let's start there because there's one thing that we have to understand. Many of you will know that this is based off of the famous Coltrane cycle, but the Coltrane cycle is actually a little bit easier than we think it is. Or let me revise that statement. Maybe not easier, but a little bit simpler and easier to understand than we think it is. So, the first thing I want you to notice is that there are only three key centers on this entire sheet. So, we have concert B major, then we have concert G major, and then we have concert E flat major. And that's it. Those are the only key centers that we see on the sheet. Now, do you notice that that already sounds like giant steps? Like that just is the quintessential sound of giant steps. Okay, so let's talk about this for a second. So the Coltrane, the quote unquote Coltrane cycle is based off of three major keys that are a major third apart from each other. So if we go from B down a major third, we get to G. And then if we go down another major third, we get to E flat. And then if we go down another major third from there, we run back into B. So if we're going to work with this down a major third thing, what we realize is that we can only go through 3 keys before we run back into the key that we started on. Okay. So that should be a huge load off your mind right now, is that, okay, there's a lot going on. Some things are happening in kind of weird places, but it's only 3 keys that we're dealing with. And of course, what we like to do is we like to get rid of all the ancillary chords that are, really important at the end of the day if you want to play in a certain style. But we have to understand that all of the chords are far from necessary if we want to get started. Okay, let me say that again. All the chords are not necessary if we want to get started on this tune. And that's the downfall of so many people. They go, I'm going to work on giant steps. And then they find out quickly, even at a slow tempo, I cannot keep up with all of these chord symbols. So our goal is to just get rid of them. And honestly, we're not going to talk about it any further. I'm not going to say, but there's all these chords and let's look at all of them and then let's reduce them down. No, let's let our initial introduction to giant steps just be these 3 major key centers. Okay. All right. Now, all that being said, one thing you do have to do that you just can't get around is you better be able to get around the key of concert B major, and you better be able to get around the key of G major and E flat major. You're not going to get very far if you can't get around and you're not comfortable in those 3 major keys. We talked about this before, right? You should know all 12 of your major scales. That's like a huge, huge priority in playing any Western music. So if you get done listening to this and you realize, like, wow, I'm really not very good in the key of concert B major, well, you got to go and take care of that first and at least develop a little bit of facility and comfortability in those 3 major keys. So, a couple of things happen that I've noticed over the years because I reduce things down in my own practice sessions. And I always had a lot of trouble with giant steps, both because it was so information dense and because it was at a fast tempo. So, we're going to do a couple of things on top of reducing it down to its key centers. One thing that we're going to do is we're going to play it as a slow bossa nova. It's going to sound like this. So that right there already is going to take a ton of the pressure off of us, right? And it feels good as a bossa nova. So that's where we're going to start things. Eventually, we'll work our way back into swing. Okay. Now, the second thing that using these key centers does, at least for me, that I've noticed that really opened up my playing. And I did it in the wrong order. So I noticed this way later on. I want you to notice this right up front. When we reduce it to key centers, we end up playing much more natural phrases because what our brain is not doing is it's not going chord, 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 which for me, and I can only speak for myself, but I've had a lot of students experience this problem too, is that every time you see a new chord, your brain sort of like resets itself and your phrasing becomes very, very, very choppy right from the beginning. And you can convince yourself that you can't play over this because honestly, if the phrasing is off, like you're not going to like how you sound over it. So by opening it up and letting the brain and the fingers think about going somewhere else less often and only think about something that's really familiar, major scale, our phrases automatically become way more natural sounding and longer because, again, our brain's not resetting every 2 beats, in a lot of this song. So, one thing that we can't get rid of is we can't get rid of the fact that the key signatures and the key centers change in kind of weird places. So, if you look at the PDF, you'll notice that, okay, we're in the key of concert B major for the first two beats, and then we change to the key of concert G major on beat three. And then that lasts for an entire bar, but it's, beat three to the end of beat two. Okay. And then we go to concert E flat major for a bar and a half. So again, like we can't make this super easy, but we can make it a lot easier. Okay. So what you may have to do is you may have to sit for a little while and listen to the backing track go by and think in your head about the key centers changing, at least for the first half of the tune, in the middle of the bar. That is something you're going to have to work on. Okay. But if you keep it slow and you know that that's going to be weird right from the beginning, and then you practice over it, you're going to get it in no time. You're really going to settle into the fact that it seemingly changes in weird places pretty quickly. But I'm not gonna lie to you and tell you that that's not gonna be a little bit difficult at first. Okay, so here's what you can do this week in terms of an assignment. I think that everybody, regardless if you've played over this or not before, should start by just playing kind of freely in those three major key centers and just getting that into your ears. So you can see I'm spending like variable amounts of time in each key center, and I'm just doing a lot to get those three key centers underneath my fingers, into my ears, into my brain. Okay, I think that would be a great place to start. The second thing you're going to do is you're going to turn on the backing track, and you're going to just have to work out where those key centers hit. And again, it might be wise to do this without your instrument at first and just wrap your head around some of those weird placements of where the keys change. Okay. Then play over it. See if you can play really, really simple things, but just simply catch those key center changes. That's it. That's all we're looking for. We're not looking to play anything just like absolutely amazing. And then what I'm going to do for the Patreon members is I'm going to give a trading track, right? Where it'll be like 5 choruses a piece of trading choruses so that you have a little bit of a reference if you want one. Okay. And that's it. That's all we're looking to do this week. All right. So I mentioned that I'm going to give the Patreon members the PDF and the trading track. And if you're new to the show, or if this is the episode that you finally want to start getting those materials, that's how we stay in business. Basically, listeners just like you choose to support us in the form of a very small monthly donation, and you do get a bunch of materials in return for that monthly donation. So if you want to learn more about that, you can go to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, click on one of the Patreon banners, or simply go to patreon.com and search for the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson podcast. You do get instant access as soon as you sign up. And again, it's just a small donation, but that's what makes everything we do here possible. Quick shout out to some new patrons this week. Thanks to Rick, Sand, Bob, Chester, Corey, and Axel. Thank you guys so much for deciding to support the podcast. And of course, to everybody we have over there supporting the show, thank you. We couldn't do this without you. Again, 10minutejazzlesson.com. Click on one of the Patreon banners, or patreon.com. Search for the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson podcast. So I'm going to leave you with just a couple of choruses of playing with key centers. over giant steps. And I hope that'll inspire you to dive in and do this work and be ready for the next place we're going to take it next week. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.